politically is the best Biden ever.
Marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug in the United States. Dangerous drug.
It is clear, however, that if left unchecked, Saddam Hussein will continue to increase his capacity to wage biological and chemical warfare and will keep trying to develop nuclear weapons.
Being a pro-war pundit means never having to say you're sorry.
William Crystal led the march to Baghdad behind a battery of Washington microphones. He has not responded to any of our requests for an interview, but he still shows up on TV as an expert.
He's got to begin to show progress in 3, 4, 5 months once the U.S. troops get in.
The Times liberal hawk Thomas Friedman also said no.
With the media.
We're not trying to show you propaganda. We're just showing you what is. We're just showing you what is.
Citizens of the internet, welcome to episode number 4 of the Almost Daily Show, the show where we talk about politics and Elon Musk's Nazi salute. We're going to get to that later. My prediction on that 1000% came true, but I don't want to spoil it for you. I got a lot of other good stuff to talk with you about today. Hope you had a nice weekend. Honestly, Bills fans, I'm so sorry. No one wanted to see the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl again, especially people who don't like Taylor Swift. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. I was rooting for I was hoping that the Bills would end up beating the Chiefs, and we'd have a, Bills Eagles Super Bowl, but I don't even care that much about sports ball, to be honest. I don't even really care that much about football. I haven't really been paying attention to it this year. Basketball, I do pay attention to a little bit more, but, who gives a shit about my sports tastes? There was a really good interview that was done with Matt Gaetz over the weekend. Well, it was posted over the weekend by Bill Maher. So we're going to start by talking about that. And if you have heard me talk about Bill Maher before, I used to think very highly of Bill Maher. And I still have respect for him, mainly because he was one of those pot smokers who was kind of very out in the open about it before it was safe to be out in the open about it, when it was kind of still very illegal. And so I always gave him a lot of respect for that. But then, of course, in the Trump era, he kind of became one of the brunch libs. And I've said this before as well, but to Bill's credit, if anyone has a good reason to hate Donald Trump, it's him. A few years ago, he accused Trump of being the son of an orangutan, and Donald Trump sued him. I don't think it went anywhere, obviously, but when you have to deal with a petty lawsuit like that, I think you have permission to be hateful towards someone. So let's get this started. This is an interview that your boy, everyone's favorite lefty, Bill Maher, did with Matt Gaetz on his Club Random show. And I thought this was great. The way that they start this interview out is Matt Gaetz kind of like pushes one of Bill Maher's buttons, but I'll just let you listen. This is just fantastic.
Back to politically incorrect, what I still believe is one of the, I'm not just kissing your ass, one of the best shows that was on TV.
Thanks.
It's way better than your show now, but it's
What?
politically
That's so
incorrect.
insulting.
Politically incorrect was so good.
That's so insulting.
It's not. I'm just for the
What you're saying to me.
I love that. He's like, it's way better than your current shows. That's so insulting. So
I
insulting.
mean, what I did 25 years ago is better than what I've done the last 20 years. That's insulting.
I'm not going to be mad at you for the rest of the interview. I just want to tell you, that's just a fucking stupid way to start a conversation.
So you think
you peaked 20 years ago, Bill? Let's be friends.
No, it's not.
That's what you just said.
It's a better artistic present.
I love that. I love that way to start it off on the right foot. By the way, he does hold the grudge through the entire interview. Like I didn't clip all the spots where he makes reference to it, but he's like, yeah, it's kind of like I was better 25 years ago on politically incorrect. You know, he was really hurt by that comment.
Presentation of your
First
work.
of all, you're wrong. So you know, you could say to me, I like that show too, but it's certainly not better than Real Time. It just isn't. It was.
I say this a lot, but I need to get a sound drop of that. First of all, you're wrong.
It was what it was. It was a design train wreck. People from different walks of life. Maybe you were young. It appealed to you more then. What don't you like about the current show?
I think it's good. It's not a criticism of the current show. Look, I like, Taylor Swift's current stuff. I don't think it's better than her initial album.
Well, don't compare me to Taylor Swift. I'm not a big
but in terms of artists, you can have better presentations of your art.
So what? But I mean, you know, Real Time, we have on actually intellectual people and people who are expert in talking about the subjects we're talking about. Politically incorrect, we had, you know, Carrot Top and Pauly Shore on.
No, but what I liked about it is that you would interface those folks.
They have that now. They have, you know, shitty star guests, celebrities mixed with politicians now on Real Time. So one of the next little pieces of this I thought was great was there's a point where Maher asks Gaetz about being in Congress, and I really liked his response. Check this out.
Stories, and then YouTube has their short form content. Yeah, I guess it's either short or long, and the middle is losing.
So, are you happy to be free of Congress and all this kind of stuff?
Well, I don't.
You seem very relaxed.
As relaxed as one can be under these conditions. I think that Congress is supposed to be temporary. I mean, I've done it for 8 years. I'd been in.
Wow, what a revolutionary concept that is. I think Congress is supposed to be temporary. I did it for 8 years. And just very applause for Matt Gaetz for saying that, because that's not something that you're going to hear a whole lot from people in Congress or who former
elected office 6 years before that in the state legislature. So from age 26 to 42, I was an elected official. And I think that should be a season of life. I don't think it should be your whole life.
A long time.
But I mean, like,
almost 20
the
years.
Things that people talk about when they get out of Congress, that they are so happy that they don't have to do anymore, like fundraising and that stuff.
I never did that anyway. I mean, I am the only Republican. I was the only Republican in Congress who took no lobbyist money, no PAC money. And I decided I would rather sink or swim on my own than be a valet for those people.
Well, how did you get away with it? I mean, how did you then get the money to run your elections? Because why does everybody else do it?
Before Donald Trump, there was no small dollar infrastructure on the Republican side. Obama had created that.
So I take issue with what he says here about Obama creating that, because Obama, I guess, did kind of pioneer. But even he didn't pioneer it. I feel like Howard Dean was doing, you know, small dollar donations on the internet before Obama. Even Obama kind of made it one with it. You know, he made it popular, but it was really Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul who really kicked that whole like small dollar, you know, high volume of small dollar donations into, you know, high gear.
Used the Chicago ward style system, put it on the internet, scaled it to the moon, and there was
go back. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, so
what's the Chicago ward style?
Democrats invested in the internet before Republicans, politically speaking. And so they did this list building. Traditionally, that list building, you know, your ward boss would know this person needs a little help with groceries, this person's son needs a job, this person cares about issue X or the park, whatever. And that was managed very locally. What Obama understood is that you could digitize that and scale it to the moon. David Plouffe wrote a great book about one of the best books on politics, Audacity to Win.
Yeah, in 2008, they definitely had.
So one of the other things that they get into here is the language around what's going on with Greenland and Canada, and Trump just kind of talking out of his ass about, hey, we're going to take over Greenland or whatever. I've noticed that one of the things, the talking points that liberals are coming back with in relation to this is that we're going to invade Panama or we're going to invade Greenland. And no one is making that, no one's saying that, and so it's kind of, that's the propaganda at work, twisting people's brains. And I'm not even saying that I'm for it or against it or whatever. Like, it's one of those things where, like, there's a few things that Trump has brought up where I'm like, what? And Panama is one of those things where it's like, I never really thought about the Panama Canal, but maybe we did get fucked on the Panama. Who knows? Like, it's not something I really thought about. But anyway, listen to what Gaetz says here, because Maher goes into this thing about annexing Greenland and stuff, and Matt Gaetz handles it, I think, really well.
The technological advantage.
It took us it took us until 2016 to really catch up, because the internet was the only thing that could harness all of this interest in politics that was Trump was generating among low propensity voters. And I rode that wave. Issue that turned my mother into a Republican. Issue that turned my mother into a Republican.
She must be thrilled that your boy's going to take it back.
She can't wait. She's real pumped about the Mount McKinley change as well.
What do you think about that? What do you think about us becoming an empire again and just annexing places?
I love this too. What do you think about us becoming an empire again? As if like the last 4 years didn't happen, where we, funded a massive war with Russia and Ukraine and funded a blank in Gaza. I hesitate to use the word, but the word that I'm thinking of. But now we're an empire again because Trump said he wants to. Yeah, come on, Bill. You're better than that.
Not see that coming. And when I say I did not see that coming, I'm going to spell it for you. IDIDNAZI. I did not see that coming, because we really shouldn't be annexing, should we? Annexing? I mean, doesn't Greenland have to actually sell it to us if they wanted to? Isn't it their choice?
I care a lot more about whether or not we're going to annex features of the Panama Canal or Greenland than, whether or not Russia annexes Crimea. Like, I think that you can.
But are you for it?
Huh? Annexing Greenland and parts of the Panama Canal? Sure, if it's a deal that makes sense.
But we don't own them.
Well,
so
yeah,
you're saying
it's a real estate transaction, Bill.
It's not an invasion.
So like he said, sure, if it's a deal that makes sense. And then he said, it's a real estate transaction, Bill. But Bill's still caught in this like talking point of like, we're going to invade Greenland. No, we're not.
Invasion is not a real estate transaction.
Well, we don't say anything about an invasion.
Well, how else do you take something?
A real estate transaction.
So they would have to agree to it.
Yeah, we could buy it.
Okay, that's different than annexing.
Well, but
so you would agree that Denmark has to
agree to it. The language that's being used around this, and again, I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying I'm for it or against. I don't even know that much about it. I just know that Trump likes to talk blustery in the press, just like Elon likes to make blustery hand signals in front of cameras. And because he talks about these things, it gets twisted in the press into, I mean, some of my relatives said, oh, I found out we're invading Panama and Canada. It's like, no one ever said anything about military action. Okay. You guys took that ball and ran with it into into another stadium.
We're not just going to take it.
The people of Greenland, I think, would be the most dispositive voice.
Okay, so we can go over the head of the government. What about, can we do that here? If some other foreign country came and asked the people of this country, do you want free blowjobs? We could just do that.
It would be a compelling offer.
Also, what a stupid question. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Anyway. So Bill also gets into this whole thing about quote unquote flirting with authoritarianism, which, these people were elected. So authoritarianism, again, no one cared about authoritarianism when the Biden administration was locking down the country or throwing people off of social media for questioning, what the news was saying. No one seemed to care much about authoritarianism when that was going on. But now that Trump is president, all of a sudden, it's the threat of authoritarianism has returned.
Guys are really flirting with authoritarianism. You know what I mean? He admires.
Like, we didn't try to throw our political prisoners in jail. We talked about it, but we didn't actually try.
Oh, you did try.
We never indicted Hillary. We never indicted our enemies.
Yeah, because they blocked it. But
they blocked it. No,
the Justice Department. Well, there were actually some people there at the beginning who were a little more fair-minded. I mean, it's not going to be that way in the second term. Although that's the job you were up for.
I was. And honestly,
remember who Trump's AG was in the first term? Like, wasn't it Jeff Sessions, that little cracker racist guy? And the Democrats loved him for some reason. They're like, yeah, how dare Trump fire Jeff Sessions? Like, that's how stupid the political world has gotten in the era of Trump, is that the Democrats are now like openly crying about people that are nowhere near left, like Mitt Romney or Jeff Sessions or John Bolton.
2016, would you have indicted Hillary?
Only if that's what the facts and the law commanded. I wouldn't have done it as some get back politically, because look, that doesn't end. And what I understand is, if you do that to them and they do that to us, then you don't ever get out of the cycle. And as someone who has held some power, it's a pretty frightening concept that when you get out, the people who take power then can utilize the apparatus of the state to deprive you of your freedom.
But of course, you went right to whataboutism. You didn't really answer what
I reject the premise that we flirt with authoritarianism.
Are you? Come on, man. Seriously?
See, the thing that's kind of interesting about liberals in 2025 is that they live in a completely fabricated fantasy world where, like, January 6th was 9/11 times 1,000, and anyone who questions the COVID narrative is an anti-vax authoritarian, or they live in this deeply fake constructed world. And all Bill Maher can say is, oh, that's whataboutism. He doesn't even know what that means. Like, what's whataboutism? What are you talking about? That has nothing to do with anything the man just said. It's just a buzzword you can say.
Possible lever to stay in office after he lost the election, plainly. Just always being friends with Putin. He likes him. He likes Viktor Orban. Always like pining to be with Team Strongman.
He's friends with... He admires authoritarians. That's the dumbest fucking talking point. And again, it's like Bill lives in this media constructed fairy tale land that liberals have lived in for a long time. It's funny because someone in my family the other night made this joke about, oh, this person or the dog is a Republican or something. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, wow, like, you really live in 2014 still. Like these people, liberals, a lot of my relatives who still think the Democrats are where it's at, their brains are still stuck in 2014. They still live pre Bernie getting stomped by the Democrats. They still live in that era where being a Democrat actually meant something, and they actually were like a decent party. Even in the era of Obama, hindsight's 2020. It's like, I felt something was wrong after the first 4 years of Obama, which is why I became kind of like a Ron Paul guy. But, at least even then you could still kind of make the argument the Democrats were a little bit better still. You couldn't do that since 2016 by any stretch.
And not really that, into our allies. You don't think that's flirting with authoritarianism? And if you flirt with it, he also makes jokes about, maybe after this term, if it's so good, we should have another one, which would be, again, an abrogation of the basic tenets of the Constitution.
See, that's the other thing that Trump does that fucking these people, like, he made a joke about a third term, and it's like, oh my God, oh, shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ. So, okay, let me jump up to where Gaetz here talks about anti-war Democrats, because again, this is the old that ancient kind of that world where Democrats were actually good. They were like the good guys. It's like right around here. I'll just run it. It's like
terms. That's flirting. That's flirting. To even make a joke about it is flirting with authoritism. My question, like in a marriage, can you just flirt and not cross the line?
Of course.
So this kind of mentality, this like dumb, overzealous liberal fucking douchebaggery is, I guarantee you, why Elon Musk did the Nazi thing, because he knew that, like, the Bill Maher's, oh my God, did you see what he did? Forget the fact that in reality, the Democrats have killed more innocent people in the last 4 years than the Republicans have since the Iraq era. Forget about that. Just he did a symbolic thing that upset people because it's a third rail. It's one of those things that you're not allowed to talk about. The Holocaust, the World War II, the Nazis, you're not allowed. Elon Musk basically did a Kanye, if you notice. Like, that's exactly what Kanye did. Do you think Kanye is a Nazi? I mean, how dumb would you have to be to think Kanye's actually a Nazi? He came out and said, I love Hitler on fucking, that was a quote, by the way, YouTube, on Alex Jones, in his little fucking gimp mask and whatever. And at the time, I'm sure, a lot of people clutched their pearls over it and pretended like it was a big deal, and it wasn't. It was just Kanye being a troll. That's exactly what this Elon Musk thing is. And again, we're going to talk about, I can't believe I'm still talking about this, but here we are. We'll get into the details on that in a while. I think a lot of it was, the stuff that's going on with Sam Altman. I think low key Elon was pissed off at Trump and wanted to like do something to like make his life miserable for a little while. And he went, oh, this will be funny. So that's my take on that. But we'll get back to that in a minute.
Of course. Yeah, most don't, but okay. I'm telling you, most guys, if they flirt, what they're doing is they're seeing if the girl flirts back. If she doesn't, I was just flirting. If she does, yeah, I'll fuck her.
So that's what flirtation only goes as far as your options at that.
Men or women, like you put out, you cast a line.
Moment. Well put.
Yeah, well,
for a man.
Well, yeah, it might be different for women, but I think that
it is different for
in
women.
Trump's case, he looks at 4 years of a pretty peaceful world. You have to concede that. And when I got elected, the places where I would come in some conflict with Trump would be where he would seek powers of war that I thought were reposed in the Congress. And now, and I had all these Democrats really eager to work with me. No war with Iran. We should stop Trump from having that power. But then, as soon as Biden is cheerleading this war in Ukraine, all the anti-war Democrats became pro-war. There are no anti-war Democrats left.
That's an interesting point. It's off the point we're talking about a little bit. It's a good.
I mean, if you're talking,
you haven't lost all your skills as the Congress.
So one of the more interesting points I would make about this interview, and you should go watch the whole thing if you're into this. But Matt Gaetz intellectually owns Bill Maher on multiple occasions throughout this. And there's one point when Bill Maher is kind of like, okay, we're just going to talk about something else, because Matt Gaetz just basically fucking pins him to the mat, intellectually on some of this stuff. But this is them talking about the anti-war.
If you're talking about the use of force to achieve your political goals, I think it's somewhat on topic.
It's not like the left doesn't do a version. I mean, they should not have been bitching about Trump is not a legitimate president. He's That was wrong. I agree. It's very different than actually trying to stay in power. We just had January 6th. It went off smoothly without a hitch. Places, everyone places. Okay, the rehearsal went great, and now we do it and we go home. But that's not what have happened.
See, this is the thing too that Democrats want to pretend like, oh, see, we're better because we didn't try to overthrow the government like January 6th. Well, first of all, there was literally no doubt about what happened this election cycle. You know, it was pretty obvious. It was a pretty decisive victory. Let's put it that way. If you remember the 2019 election, what happened? Let's just take a real quick trip down memory lane here, back to the 2019 election, real quick. I don't know if you remember this or not, but when the tallies were kind of like being finalized the night, Trump had won. And then all of a sudden, a bunch more votes just spilled into the system, and then Trump lost. That's how election. So to the January 6th people's credit, that was a little bit fishy, you know, and that's one of the reasons I think you didn't see, you know, like this time, even when Clinton lost in 2016, it was close enough that, you know, they were able to go, oh, Russia did it, and people bought it for a long time, you know. So, you know, that's just how it is. But these guys trying to act like they're the bigger people, like, bro, George Bush, Al Gore, you know, in fucking in the second Bush, I think it was 2004, the Bush-Kerry election, like they totally like rigged some shit in Ohio, you know, and in 2000 it was Florida, you know, so it was like all of a sudden, now that all the neocons are Democrats, they're like, oh, how dare the Republicans question the results of the election, you know, like the Democrats have been doing for years and years, literally.
Happened if you guys had lost, and you know that.
Bill, you understand
that is an asymmetry you have to address.
Okay, let me address it. You're right. This past week we had a wonderful January 6th. The last time we had a Republican president elected and Democrats did not object to the electors, do you know when the last time that was?
See, this is the kind of bullshit.
No, look, it was 1988. It was 1988 the last time they didn't object to Republicans. They objected to George W. Bush winning Ohio.
Object is different than calling the Justice Department and pressuring them to do things that even his own Justice Department wouldn't do.
Like what, Bill? Like there's nothing that the Trump administration did in that election cycle that was out of the ordinary. And eventually Trump conceded and went home. Yeah, but you also have to admit again, there were some kind of fishy things going on that year. So anyway, let me let them finish.
It's different than calling the guy in Georgia and saying, find me 11,000 votes. It's different than going to court with all these ridiculous cases that were laughed out of every courtroom. It's different than actually sending fake electors. Don't give me bullshit and we'll be friends.
But again, Bill forgets how actually earlier in this clip, Bill admitted that the Democrats being fake about Russia and in manufacturing this whole narrative was not okay, you know, and so he totally leaves out all the shit they did, like the lawfare, like the ridiculous court cases, like, oh, he inflated the value of his real estate. That's what you do in business. You inflate the value of something and then you negotiate down. You always start high. The E. Jean Carroll suit was dragged out of the gutter, you know, from years ago. They literally changed the goddamn statute of limitations for a year just so they could bring that case. Then the judge in the was it the hush money case? One of the whatever fucking, there's so many bullshit cases. That judge's daughter ran a goddamn campaign firm for the Democrats. So this idea that it's not like equal, like one side's worse than the other, fuck you. No, it's not. Your side's a little more, you know, better at marketing their maneuvers at the moment, but it's all there. It's all there.
Bullshit me? No, we'll still be friends, but I don't think you're a hack. instead of someone who could actually have an honest conversation and admit this asymmetry exists.
I don't believe it's asymmetrical at all. When you look at the way the Democratic Party used an authoritarian bum rush to get Joe Biden out of the race and replace him with Harris. What was it? Was that
another great point? And this is what I was talking about earlier, where Bill Maher has to concede that he's wrong.
Was that the great sacrifice to the virtue of democracy and the great rejection of authoritarianism was swapping her out for him like it's some Mississippi Square dance?
Okay. I'm just going to end this part of our discussion by saying,
I'm just gonna so that's what I was saying. Gaetz just kind of fucking intellectually bitch slapped him. He's like, oh hey, remember your primary where they tried to sell you a fucking senile dude, and then when it didn't work and they propped his ass up on stage and he froze in front of the headlights and had a Mitch McConnell-esque stroke, then we just hurried and swapped out his VP without any voting. In fact, we crushed voting to make sure we could put him over. We sued RFK Jr. and other third-party candidates off the ballots. Remember that, Bill? And Bill's like, oh, let's talk about something else. It's time to talk about something else now.
I just looking in your eye, talking to you, not the media guy I saw. You're a lot brighter than I thought you were.
See, there you go. You're a lot brighter than I thought you were. Yeah, because the media paints these people as these like Marjorie Taylor Greene is another great example of the media painting someone to be this dumb fuck. And then you actually listen to her talk and she's fucking smart. She's sharp, a lot sharper than Joe Biden is. And then you realize your perception of these political figures is through someone else's eyes. You're not. And this is the realization I had about Trump is I went like, okay, wait a minute. Everything I perceive about this person is through the eyes of people that fucking viscerally hate him and are trying to keep him away from the office of president. And I think obviously that's why he won this cycle, because a lot of people saw that.
It's not bright.
Yeah.
And what gave you that impression?
Like everything you've said and done. No, and also because the media is I just never like talk.
I like this about Bill, though, because you also have to give Bill credit for going like, oh, wow, like Matt Gaetz is actually really smart. And the media perception, which he just cited, is why I thought he probably was a dumbass, because that's what the media is making us hate each other. I realize this all the time. I get out into the world and I talk to people. People are fucking smart. People are a lot smarter than they get credit for. And we're just like on our computers and our fucking phones all day, like, oh, everyone's fucking stupid. Americans are stupid Nazis, fat, stupid Nazis, fat white supremacists, stupid Nazis. Even Kanye West is a white supremacist. All right. So let's move on to this next and this next bit. Bill kind of asks Matt about the sexual assault allegations against him. And I thought this was good too, because this is another area where Bill's a lot more fair, I think, than most people would be in this conversation.
Up with one of them, and you could be that second option.
So people want to know two basic things.
Okay.
One, was he ever with an underage girl?
No.
Okay. I know you said that, and if the
no hesitation, no. Remember the Sandusky? Tosh has the joke about Sandusky when he was on 60 Minutes or whatever Hardline or whatever Nightline or whatever fucking show that they interviewed Sandusky. They're like, "Do you like teenage boys or something?" He's like, he kind of hesitated, and it's like that's an obvious giveaway right here. You ever slept with an underage girl? No, not even a millisecond of hesitation there. So I will give him that. That doesn't mean that it's not true or that it's true, but he didn't hesitate.
Justice Department had any evidence, and again, people are going to attack me. What are you doing? I'm not defending Matt Gaetz. I'm telling the truth as to what it is. And if you don't want to hear the truth, you're the hack.
Yes. I applaud Bill for that. That's the new media landscape. That's why Joe Rogan and fucking Jimmy Dore are so beloved, because they fucking tell the truth. They don't live inside one of these partisan echo chambers where, well, everyone said Elon's Nazi salute means he's a fucking Nazi, and so that's what fucking we're gonna say, and we're like the knee jerk fucking zombie nature of like the political left is just ridiculous. Like fucking okay, yes, what Elon did was a Nazi salute, but fucking who cares? Why are we still talking about it? I'm still talking about it. I'll shut up.
Justice Department, this was Biden's Justice Department, declined. I can't believe Biden's Justice Department wouldn't have wanted to get you if there was something.
Exactly.
So the fact that they said, we got nothing, tells me something, that they had nothing. Now, I don't know what anybody does behind closed doors. There's lots of scandals about lots of people, but I got to go with what, with that.
Criminal.
So I put that aside.
Okay.
Second thing they want to know is what he was doing considered prostitution. So that's what we're talking about now. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like the Beverly Hills housewife who really hates her husband now, but sticks around and fucks him a few times a year because she doesn't want to give up the big house. To me, that's much more prostitution. That is textbook doing something you hate just for the money. Same thing if he stays with her for the same reason, because he can't afford to get divorced. That's prostitution. But, okay, I wrote down the quote. There is this, okay. Well, first of all, you said giving someone money you're dating that they didn't ask for. That's prostitution now? So, yeah, okay, that's your exact quote. But there's this in a text. I guess this is from your girlfriend at the time.
This is good.
Talking about you and your wingman. The guys are a little short this week. If it can be more of a customer appreciation week, Matt. Now, were there coupons involved? I just have to ask the tough questions. Were there coupons?
Bill,
Okay,
this is a text message I neither sent nor received. Another person is sending this message, presumably about me, to tell other women that they shouldn't ask for money. It sounds like the person who sent that message really wanted to be the great recipient of any generosity and didn't want her friends to also be the recipient of that generosity.
This is what he just pointed out here. I want to pause here for a second and point this out, because this is what I noticed they do with Trump. The January 6th thing, when they had the Cassidy Hutchins or whatever the fuck her name was, Cassie Hutchins or whatever. Cassidy Hutchins, or this fucking woman, gets on the stand and basically repeats a story that someone else told her. You know what I mean? And it's like this is what they're trying to get Matt Gaetz based on a text that someone else sent to someone else. It didn't even come to his phone. It's just so, and he goes, presumably about me, which is, but again, it's like, this is how deep they have to, how fucking like twice removed they get with this shit just so they can smear people in the media like this. It's fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous.
You're telling me that makes me some sort of criminal? I didn't send this message. I didn't receive this message. I'm referenced in it because one woman is telling other women, hey, there's no generosity for you.
So the phrase customer appreciation week, you never knew that before you saw it in this text? Okay, what about this one? Add to cart. No, I'm joking. It does not.
All right, so let's jump up to
drive-by. There's something about something was just a drive-by. What's a drive-by?
Misinformation a little bit here, and I thought this was another great little piece to highlight. We got a couple more pieces of this I'll show you before we move on, but definitely a good. It's only the whole interview is only about an hour long, so if you're into this kind of shit, again, I highly recommend you just go and listen to the whole thing or watch the whole thing. But here they're going to talk about the misinformation era, and I thought this was really good. And Bill impressed me on this.
That was your big.
You have to be. I mean, Zuckerberg just made a big deal about free speech, and I'm behind him on it because I think he's right. He's doing a kind of a mea culpa, like we fact check too much. And look, is there a lot of misinformation? Yeah, but also misinformation has become like a code word for just stuff we don't like. COVID started in a lab. Well, we just don't think that should be out there. So that's well, it wasn't misinformation. Shit like that. Not to have to tell
and the
you
stuff that's true. When people were posting the true side effects of some of these vaccines, you had folks in the White House pressuring social media platforms to get that taken down. And it wasn't even false, but it was just.
And listen, you can say what you want about Zuckerberg too. I'm of the Whitney Webb school with him. I don't trust him. You know, he went along too easily before. Where I think someone like Elon Musk, you know, say what you want about Elon and his Nazi salute. There are millions upon millions of people on Twitter right now criticizing Elon, calling Elon a Nazi, and he's not. He might be shadow banning some of them. Who, you know, he does seem that petty, but there are people doing it. His platform, you know, say what you will about it. Most of the shit I saw about Gaza was on fucking Twitter X. You know, because I'm 40. I'm in my 40s. I'm not fucking on TikTok all the time. I do use it, but you know, it's one of those things where it's a tough tightrope to walk because, you know, I'm not an Elon Musk stan, but just look at the nature of the last couple of years and the platform that Twitter has been, you know, Twitter X has been, it's been the most open platform regardless, you know, which is, you know, maybe the bar's low. You could argue that. And there's Elon's definitely swinging for the Zio team. Let's put it that way. But anyway, let me finish this out real quick.
Derogatory to the narrative that they were trying to spin at the time, that should not be allowed. And I think the more you decentralize that away from the fact checker model to the community notes model, the more you make it durable to that type of government influence.
Yeah. So
community notes, again, like another thing I will applaud Elon for, and I say this all the time. People laughed at him and pointed when he was like, "Oh, I'm going to charge people for a blue check." Now they all do it. So
if you were in the Justice Department, like what would be your...
Okay, so he's not going to get in the Justice Department. We don't need to talk about that. But there's one more piece of this I want to show you where they talk about marijuana, because as you know, that is an issue near and dear to my heart. And listen to this little tidbit right here. Good stuff.
I'm glad, man. I'm glad.
You don't smoke pot anymore, right?
I won't with you. It would mess with like all the Molly I took on the way here.
I love it.
Weren't you one of the most forthright ones to want to put forward legalization for pot laws?
I'm very pro
marijuana
reform. I wrote Florida's first, second, and third marijuana laws.
It just failed there.
Well, the vote on going from medical to adult use. Now in Florida, you have to go.
It was on the ballot. It
didn't fail.
How could fucking nutty, crazy, bath salt, alligator,
don't with the Florida trash
not be illegal for pot?
Well, we don't allow the homeless to degrade infrastructure to the point where it hurts the firefighters.
Different issue. and the liberals have completely fucked
Matt
up
with the
that issue.
snapbacks. Matt with the snapbacks. We don't allow homeless people to degrade infrastructure.
It's in my brilliant special that's on probably now or just was. Is anybody else seeing this? I talk about it, liberal versus woke as far as homeless goes. No, I mean, trust me, the liberals have a lot to answer for, and I call them out on all of it, which again is why they don't like me, and I don't give a fuck.
You talk a lot. You know what? I wonder if you give a fuck because you talk about it a lot.
I do.
You advertise how much it affects you by talking about it.
Too. I love Gaetz comes in hard. I'm honestly shocked that Bill Maher posted parts of this without editing them out, like that first part when he says the shit about politically incorrect and Maher freaks out. But even like this part too, Gaetz just calls him out on it. He's like, you talk about it a lot. You obviously do care about it. You obviously do care that the left hates you.
No,
because I don't even
no.
I view you as a libertarian.
No, all I'm doing is reminding people of my brand. My brand is almost unique, not completely.
And
but
Bill, you would make fun of millennials on TikTok for doing that, so you need to shut up, man. Anyway, that's a good interview. Some really good stuff in there. I love Gaetz's response to the marijuana thing. He's like, I wouldn't want it to mess up the Molly I took on the way over here. So let me pause for just a second before and set up the next bit. We're going to talk about JD Vance on Face the Nation, and I need to grab another cup of coffee. So give me like 90 seconds to 3 minutes. Wait, what's 3 minutes? 180 seconds. Give me 90 to 180 seconds, and I will be right back. Thanks for sticking with me, citizens of the internet. We're going to talk right now about the interview that JD Vance just did with Face the Nation. And there's a lot of great stuff in this. And honestly, I think Vance is kind of, I almost like Vance better than Trump. And it's pretty evident why he was kind of put on the ticket, because he's such an articulate guy and he's so good at kind of pushing back on these people in a way that Trump is not, because he's got that Ivy League education. And he's just a well-spoken guy. And I really love a lot of the stuff he says in this interview, starting with what he says about Tulsi Gabbard. Because as we know, the CUNTs in the security state are going to do everything they can to prevent someone like her from getting in. So let's listen to what Vance has to say right here.
We send off to fight in our wars.
Both the Wall Street Journal and the National Review, conservative publications, as you know, have been critical of Tulsi.
Oh, the Wall Street Journal! I love that, like, the Wall Street Journal is some kind of, like, it's held up as, like, this like, pinnacle of journalistic integrity. It's run by fucking Rupert Murdoch. It's literally like a bunch of rich people fucking driveling. And listen, I'm not saying that they don't probably have some good stories in the Wall Street Journal, but fuck the Wall Street Journal. Jesus Christ.
Tulsi Gabbard. The Review called her an atrocious nominee who deserves to be defeated. They compared her defense of Edward Snowden, the fugitive who stole U.S. secrets, to an attorney general who thinks the mob gets a bad rap. Her refusal to accept.
They compared. So who said this? The editors? Oh, I guess it's like, who are the editors of the National Review? I'd like to know. That's probably like Bill. Let's look that up real quick. While we're here. National Review editor staff. Oh, here we go. Masthead authors, the editors of the National. Let's click on this link right here. Here we go. Okay, so these are the senior. Who are the editors, though? The editors comprise the senior editorial staff of National Review magazine. Hold on, let's just go back to this. I'll play this and I'll look it up while you're watching this.
U.S. intelligence findings that Assad gassed his own people, they said, was like a nominee for OMB director not being able to count. Does any of this give you pause putting her in charge of the U.S. intelligence community? Yes or no?
No, Margaret, look, these are publications.
Yes. He's like, no. And also the dramatic way she's like, whoa, what they said.
That attacked Donald J. Trump obsessively, but those publications don't determine who the president is, the American people do. And Donald J. Trump is the person who determines who his cabinet is, not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance. Here's Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
Well, the Senate will provide advice and consent as is its constitutional.
Not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance. You love to see it.
Obligation, but I feel confident that Tulsi Gabbard will ultimately get through. Two things that are important to know about Tulsi. First of all, she is a career military servant who's had a classification at the highest levels for nearly 2 decades. She has impeccable character, impeccable record of service, and she also is a person who I think is going to bring some trust back to the intelligence services. The bureaucrats at our intelligence services have gotten completely out of control. They've been part of the weaponization of our.
She also was a fucking Democrat until like really recently, like last year. Her whole life, she was a Democrat. She ran for president as a Democrat.
Political system, the weaponization of our justice system. We need to have good intelligence services who keep us safe, but part of that is restoring trust in those services, and we think Tulsi is the right person to do it. That's
she
why
doesn't
the president.
trust those intelligence services.
She recognizes that the bureaucrats have gotten out of control, and we need somebody there who's going to rein them in and return those services to their core mission of identifying information that's going to keep us safe.
How can you not love that answer? I mean, that is just intellectual fucking finesse right there. Oh, she doesn't trust them. She doesn't trust them. No one fucking trusts them. That's why we want someone like her in charge of them, dipshit. You're supposed to be smarter than this, Margaret Brennan. I thought you were a news person for like a long time. I mean, why are you asking such stupid questions?
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one?
Okay, so this is something, before she gets into this, I want to like just take a moment and berate the Democrats for. Because now, if you'll notice on Twitter, all the Democrats are like, oh, well, look at how expensive eggs are right now. Have you seen how expensive eggs are? Which is basically a tacit admission that Joe Biden was a fucking shit show, because Donald Trump has only been president for like 5 days now. So, like, if Biden was in control, you'd be like, well, he just became president, give him a little while. Yeah, so that's what you should do. Listen, Trump has already done things I've wished Democrats would do for years in the 5 days he's been back in office. Like appoint fucking RFK Jr. to HHS and fucking, completely reveal, basically executive order to release the JFK file, just stuff like that. Minuscule things that I didn't even know I wanted done. Anyway, let's listen to what Margaret Brennan has to say about the Biden economy and JD Vance's response to
one lowers prices.
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need. If you look at our slate of executive orders, no, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days. I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years. It's been an incredible breakneck pace of activity. We're going to work with Congress. We're, of course, going to have more executive orders, and we're going to try, the way that you lower prices is that you encourage more capital investment into our country. And you ask specifically, what executive order is going to help lower prices? All of the stuff that we've done on energy, to explore more energy reserves, to develop more energy resources in the United States of America. One of the main drivers of increased prices under the Biden administration is that we had a massive increase in energy prices. Donald Trump has already taken multiple executive actions that are going to lower energy prices. And I do believe that means consumers are going to see lower prices at the pump and at the grocery store, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
And while we've done a whole lot, we can't undo all of the damage of Joe Biden's presidency in 4 days.
Well, there are a lot of things that contributed to.
That's a good answer. And also, I want to add that one of the reasons energy prices are so high is because of the fucking wars we're involved in. When you have instability in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, shipping routes are complicated, shipping routes are compromised, and it makes the delivery of energy more expensive. Ergo, the price goes up. So that's one of the aspects of this they did not touch on, but I think JD Vance's answer was great. And she's clearly flabbergasted. These media people aren't used to having smart people to have to deal with. So it's great. It's refreshing to see people like RFK and Tulsi and, Vance out there really like putting the intellectual screws to some of these people.
Higher energy prices, and there was record oil and gas production.
Yes, Joe Biden did many terrible things to lead to an increase in prices. I agree, Margaret.
Yes. No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things. When do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel is way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers, and that is what we're trying to fight for.
Well, the flurry of executive orders, most of them weren't about the economy. Many of them
were, though, Margaret. We had, I think we've taken
promise
over
of tariffs by February 1st.
We've taken over 200 executive actions, some executive orders, other executive actions. Again, this is in less than a week, and a lot of them were focused on the economy, bringing investment into our country and lowering energy prices. We've also focused on safety, restoring public safety, ending weaponization of the Department of Justice. We've done a lot. And I think the president is
So I'm going to jump up
commended.
here. The next piece of this I want to talk about is FEMA. So they bring up FEMA, and again, this is one of those things where I never really thought about this, but like, what good is FEMA? It does seem like it doesn't matter whether the administration is Republican or Democrat, FEMA's always fucking up. Do you remember Katrina? Yeah, heck of a job, Brownie, and that whole thing. It's like, what? And now it's, I don't know who runs FEMA under Biden. Is it Mayorkas or what? But anyway, listen to what she asks him about the disasters, and listen to what Vance has to say here. I thought this was an interesting little exchange between the two of them.
Did say he wants to do something with an executive order in relation to federal emergency response. He said he may reform or eliminate FEMA. Instead of sending emergency responders, he may start to send a percentage of money to states to take care of themselves. But, FEMA has specialized expertise that some of these states just don't have.
Oh, Margaret.
But also, that makes sense because some of these states fuck up. You look at like the difference between the way California handles disasters and the way, say, Florida does. And it doesn't, I don't know. Let's listen to what Vance has to say in response.
Arsenal. And
I wish
how
that they
will states who are lower income states, the Mississippis, the Kentuckys, the Alabamas, be able to do this for themselves without federal help?
Well, the president, to be clear, is not saying we're
okay. So that's a dumb question again, because the point she just made before she asked that question is, how will these poor states be able to do it without federal help? Is Trump said himself he's going to take the money away from FEMA and just give it directly to the states to handle their own disaster management. They have the equipment. I mean, they have Bearcats. They have the military. Every state has militarized police force and trucks, And again, if they give them money, they can always, if they don't have the equipment, they can pay someone to bring the equipment in from out of town. So it's not, I think when it comes to the Trump era, what I've been trying to do is be a little bit more open-minded about these systems that are in place that haven't worked well for a long time. It's a lot. It seems like a lot of people who just want to cling to it, like, oh, FEMA, what about FEMA? It's like, when has FEMA ever done anything good? Like, do you remember? Please, in the comments, if you can remember like a time when FEMA really came through for the people, let me know, because I can't think of any. And I'm not a young dude. So I think that it's just being open-minded to like tearing these kind of institutional fucking aberrations apart and rebuilding them as something else, or diverting that money to a more effective place. It's like, that's what Trump did his whole life. Like people, I mean, way before I was even into politics, way before fucking Trump was in politics, I researched Trump because I researched entrepreneurs because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I read books about Trump. I read books about Richard Branson. I read books about fucking Mark Cuban. I read books about Lee Iacocca. Like, I read books about leaders, and in Trump's biography, what he was famous for was he would take over overblown construction projects and get them finished. So I think having someone with that kind of a mentality, trying to kind of, cut waste and route the money into these types of programs is a good thing, and a change is good. Like, again, if I could point to an example of FEMA being awesome at any point, maybe, there'd be an argument against what I'm saying, but why not tear it down and start over?
leave anybody behind. He's saying that in the way that we administer these resources, some of which is coming from the federal level, some of which is coming from the state level, we've got to get the bureaucrats out of the way and get the aid to the people who need it most.
But these
Let's
are the
be
first
honest,
responders.
Margaret, you talk about the expertise from FEMA. FEMA in North Carolina, in California, in Florida with some of the hurricanes has often been a disaster. And it's not because we don't have good people at FEMA, it's because bureaucratic red tape and garbage prevents the rapid deployment of resources to the people who need
states
it
are
most.
now going to have to do this themselves.
The president is trying to encourage us to reform the way that we deliver emergency response in a way that gets resources
So
to
don't
people
take
who
him
need
literally,
it. No,
is what you're saying.
We should take.
Like, just again, like watching this interview just reminds me why people fucking hate the news media, because they're just such clingers. They're like, oh, wait, you want to change something? Oh, what about this? And what about that? You can't just change things. It's not like people voted for a change or something. Like, what the fuck is these people's problem?
Take the president at his word that FEMA needs desperate reform, because it does. Margaret, when I went to North Carolina as VP elect, but before we were sworn in, people would talk about how FEMA would get resources, food, medicine, water to a warehouse, but then would have no plan to get it from the warehouse to the people in the mountains who were literally starving and thirsting to death.
Mm-hmm.
We can do so much better, and under Donald Trump's leadership, we will.
But they work with the state and local officials.
They often
So
don't work
now
well
it's
enough. And again, that's
going
not
to be on the
because
state
of
and local officials.
the FEMA management officials don't work well enough with the state and local officials to get resources to the people who need it. We should expect, and this is, I think, one of the fundamental premises of President Trump's leadership, the American people should expect more of their government. When there's a terrible disaster,
Mhm.
they should expect food, medicine, and water to get to the people who need it. When there's a terrible fire in California, the fire hydrants ought to actually turn on. I am sick of the American people having such low expectations for their government. They should demand more of us, because this is the greatest country in the world, and that's what Donald Trump's leadership promises to bring back.
So
Well said. Let's see. Let's see if y'all can pull it off. So far, I like what I'm seeing. Don't hate me, my lefty friends, but so far, fuck it. Tear it all down. Fuck it all up. The Democrats had multiple opportunities to harness the populist sentiment within their party. Bernie Sanders was filling stadiums full of excited voters, and they were like, nope, Joe Biden. And this is where you end up at. And that's what I love telling my liberal relatives now. I'm like, guess what? You know why Trump is president right now? Because of people like me. Because of people like me who said, fuck the Democrats. I'm not just voting for you guys because Trump is scary. Trump is so scary. We got to vote for Democrats. That's literally what their campaign message has been for the last 10 years. Since 2015. Yeah, really, 10 years. No, Trump's scary. Vote for us so we can do all the things Republicans do because Trump is scary. And now you have, again, a Republican administration doing things I wish the left and the Democrats had done, years ago. And again, stuff that I didn't even know I wanted them to do, like releasing the JFK files. So let's listen to this. This is so. She asks him about the preacher lady, okay, never mind. It's not the preacher lady. Apparently, it's like the Catholic Church said they're going to oppose their immigration measures or something like that. So this is another kind of thing where it's one of those issues, and I think Keaton and Russ did a great job kind of summarizing it. Russ, actually, the other day. But I saw Tim Dillon saying this, and Joe Rogan. It's like, think about European countries, right? Think about a country like Denmark or a country like Germany. Do they have open borders like we do? Can you go down to Home Depot in Germany, or Das Home Depot, or whatever the fuck they call it in Germany, and just get a bunch of like Muslim day laborers, and it's just like a known thing where they're just like, yeah, we just let them in and we give them, like, what other country in the world just willy-nilly lets people into their country and gives them jobs and shit? Like, what? I mean, I know it happens, and I'm not saying, but the point I'm getting to is, if you want to have a functional country with these resources and the resources to take care of your people and give them health care and give them, maybe a living wage or universal basic income, whatever is coming on the horizon, you have to have some semblance of an actual functional country where you're like, okay, well, these are the people who were born here, so they get first dibs. And again, I love people. I value, my core values are life is more important than any kind of money. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't take care of immigrants or people that are, asylum seekers or, especially when you look at the track record the United States has in the world. We go fuck these countries up and like, why are these people coming into our country? Because we're in their country, fucking trying to steal their resources and fucking up their game. That's why they're coming here. So maybe we should start by stopping that shit, which is, Trump is on that page at least. So that the foreign wars, like putting Tulsi Gabbard, a person who has been vocally, and again, I know she rolled over for Zionism and she's not perfect, but she has a long history and track record of being someone who fought in the military. So, who's been against war. So, I think this is a confluence of different things coming together. So anyway, listen to what Vance has to say here about this immigration issue. And we're almost done with this bit here. Start right here.
In a way that keeps us safe. Let me ask this question, Margaret. Let's separate the immigration issue. If you had a violent murderer in a school, of course I want law enforcement to go and get that person out.
Of course.
So what's the point of the question?
You changed the regulation this week. That's the point of the question.
Exactly.
So what she asked him, just to back up a little bit here, is why do you think it's okay to go into a church or a school and take an undocumented illegal immigrant out of that? And his argument, of course, is we're not just taking immigrants, we're going after people who have criminal records. And, if they have a criminal record, it doesn't matter where they're at. If they're in a church or a school, we can still go get them. That's kind of the point he's making here.
The authority to go into churches and go into schools.
We empowered law enforcement to enforce the law everywhere to protect Americans.
A chilling effect, arguably, to people to not send their kids to school.
I desperately hope it has a chilling effect on illegal immigrants coming into our country.
You think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops are actively hiding criminals?
I think the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has frankly not been a good partner in common sense immigration enforcement that the American people voted for. And I hope, again, as a devout Catholic, that they'll do better.
There are 5 legal challenges.
So just to stop right here, again, it's like, this is one of those things where, you're getting, there's so much pushback on this fucking issue that it really does make me go, wow, I'm interested to see how this plays out, because I think it could be like a really positive thing. And as Russ and Keaton were saying the other day, if this works out and wages go up and cost of housing goes down, that it's over, for Democrats. I mean, let's be honest. I think the Democratic Party as an institution is kind of done. I've been done with it for 10 years now. And, after the grifters stole a bunch of people's money this last cycle, hopefully the smart people at least are done with it. Because it hasn't done anything of value except for make us feel good about having a black president, maybe, which, that's not nothing, but policy wise, under Obama, I watched my wages go down. I watched my quality of life go down. I watched everything get more expensive. I watched healthcare not get fixed like I voted for. So, and then, Biden's administration was literally the worst in my lifetime, from a personal perspective. I know there's a lot of people who would argue maybe not so much on paper, but for me personally, absolutely, the Biden administration, some of the worst years of my life, no doubt.
Is already to one of the other immigration actions, the order on birthright citizenship. A federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, I think you'd agree, has some conservative credentials, paused the order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. How do you reconcile this challenge to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution?
So I obviously disagree with that, Judge.
Again, look at what's going on here. This is a supposedly liberal woman, A judge who Ronald Reagan, our Lord and Savior, Ronald Reagan. Of course you love Reagan, right? And this is the dynamic you see playing out. Like with what I said to my liberal relatives the other night. It's like, dude, like, who's still a Democrat? Because the Democrats are the fucking neocons. Now listen to the Democrats, like, oh, a conservative judge like Ronald Reagan, the precious Lord Ronald Reagan. And listen to Vance's response.
Judge, and these things, some of them will be litigated. That's the nature of our constitutional system. But here's the basic idea of President Trump's view on this. If you are a lawful permanent resident or a legal immigrant who plans to stay, your children, of course, should become American citizens. But let's say you're the child of an ambassador. You don't become.
But that's not part of it.
Well, that is
already a carve-out having
an
to do with
important
kids of
principle.
diplomats.
But we're saying that carve-out should apply to anybody who doesn't plan to stay here. If you come here on vacation and you have a baby in an American hospital, that baby doesn't become an American citizen. If you're an illegal alien and you come here temporarily, hopefully, your child does not become an American citizen by virtue of just having been born on American soil.
So do you remember, some of the earliest like immigration language was about anchor babies, where people would come here and just have a baby to anchor themselves, like, oh, my child's a citizen. I don't think there's anything wrong with revisiting this. Like, call me a racist if you want, but it's like, every other country, like, and I've said this before, I have relatives who are in real estate, and one of them is a dual German citizen. It's impossible to buy real estate in Germany unless you are like born at like a couple generations deep in Germany. It's impossible. You cannot buy residence in Germany. You cannot buy land in Germany unless you're like a couple generations deep. Like, it's a very deep process, where here it's a fucking free-for-all. And then we wonder why our quality of life has degraded as much as it had. And there's so much outside influence in our country. It's like, this is stuff that I never really thought about until, the Trump and Vance shit came along. And, it makes sense though. It's like, compare us to other countries. Like I said, show me an example of another country that has the same kind of like open immigration system that we do, where you like, it's a lot. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't claim to know a lot about it. I know Ellen Jimerson, who's on Due Dissonance sometimes has expertise in immigration, kind of this area. So maybe you can educate me, Ellen, but like, are there other countries that have this loose of a border policy where you can just come in as a worker and kind of like skate your way through and then have a kid and stay, and that kid's a citizen? Like, and it's not a racist thing either. Like, black people are citizens too. Like, there's generations and generations of black people and Asian people and Hispanic people that are legitimate American citizens. No one's saying throw them out. We're just talking about people who come in from another country, undocumented, and just kind of tightening that up. I'm not even saying we should throw all of them out. These guys are just saying throw out, the criminals, the ones who have criminal records and backgrounds to start, and then figure out what to do with the people who are law abiding, but, might be here undocumented or whatever. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. Again, it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, but what other country has had a system like ours that has been this, like, how long has it been this way too? And again, I mean, back in, 200 years ago, it was bring us your tired, bring us your poor. It was a much more open country, much larger than, it was a different time. Times have changed. So I think, anyway, let me let him finish here, and we'll close this one out.
Soil. It's a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people and their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who come in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different.
Oh, well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by. This is a very unique.
So this I love. This is basically where they get into what I was just talking about. Because it is a country founded by immigrants, right? A lot of countries were founded by immigrants. I mean, I don't think most countries were founded by the indigenous people there, if we're being honest, and except for maybe the really, really old ones like Iran and maybe Russia, maybe China. I don't know.
Unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
Boom.
No country.
That is a great answer. I love that. Just because we're a country founded by immigrants doesn't mean we have to fucking keep the same policy for 200 years. Times have changed. Things are different than they were 200 years ago.
Says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of American citizenship. America should actually look out for the interests of our citizens first. And that means, again, if you're here permanently and lawfully, your kid becomes an American citizen. If you're not here permanently, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and don't plan to be, why would we make those people's children American citizens permanently?
I want to ask you about refugee admissions, which were just suspended.
She just goes to the next subject. So last one I want to jump into right here. Here they are going to talk about January 6th. And we all know that January 6th was America's 9/11 times 20, probably the worst day that Americans have ever experienced. But listen to what these guys talk about right here. This is good stuff.
And I think most Americans agree with me.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said, if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you?
What's funny is most of the violence was committed by undercover cops, I would argue. For entertainment purposes only, I would argue that. But I'd be curious to see, I'm sure there are a couple incidents like Ashley Babbitt being shot by the Capitol Police, for example. But there were no cops that were killed by protesters on that day. There just aren't. It's not. And they tried to hype up a bunch of this stuff for dramatic effect. But then you read about it. And, I thought some of it was true, too, until I had to was forced to read up on it, doing this show.
You counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people.
Well, Margaret, I noticed,
including those who committed violence.
Margaret, I noticed that you.
So it's like, sorry to keep interrupting, but the media class, these out of touch wine mom liberals like Margaret Brennan, who think that January 6th is this earth shattering event, and that we shouldn't it's racism to want to have a stable a working functional border this. They don't realize how out of touch they are, and it's kind of shocking, but they're speaking to a certain group of people that all voted for Kamala Harris, and they still live in that bubble despite the election results. They're not going to change.
Cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards in how sentences were applied to the J6 protesters versus other groups. What the president said consistently on the campaign is that he was going to look at a case-by-case basis.
This is blank.
And that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases. And the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights.
Also, how long were those people already in jail? Couldn't they just get out on time served? What the fuck did you do to be in jail for 4 years? Show up at a protest? Break a window? What? No one killed anyone. There's no. It's fucking crazy.
The president believes that. I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He's in prison.
The poor policeman. Oh my goodness. Those poor delicate policemen. Oh my God. That's the Democratic Party of today. Bootlicking cops. These people are so sad. So let's move on to the next little segment I have, and we're almost done here. I've already gone way over time, but I wanted to show you this bit where Trump did this press conference, like already his first like 3 days, and he's done like 12 more press conferences than Biden did in 4 years. But in this press conference, this is something that I think kind of got glossed over by a lot of media outlets. And I thought it was interesting because this reporter asks him about living presidents and if he had to call on a living president, who he would choose to call on, which living president he would pick. Like if he had to call on the advice of a living president. And I thought his response was pretty cool, or just at least interesting to hear. So check this out. We won't spend a ton of time on this, but this is Trump. Yeah, you'll get to hear the question too. So
even 100%. And if we did that, I think they'd approve it.
President Trump, you've seen the other living presidents a couple times in the last few months. If you ever had to call on one of them for advice about anything that's going on here, which one would you call?
It's an interesting. Well, I thought Bill Clinton was a very good politician. I don't think he was used properly. I think they disrespected him. When Hillary was running, he came back and he said, you better get up to Michigan and Wisconsin. You remember that, Peter? Every house has a Trump sign on it. And they all laughed at him because the Republicans had won Michigan and Wisconsin for decades, long time. And they all laughed at Bill Clinton. Like, the hell does he know? And he turned out to be right because I won both of them. And then we just won both in this election, too. We won Wisconsin and Michigan and every other swing state. We won all the swing states. All 7. They talked about 7 swing states. We won them all. So, but Bill Clinton he had a great political sense, I think.
You looked like you were having a good conversation with President Obama at President
I was. And you'd like to know what it was? Oh. Everybody wants to know. I wouldn't want to, but we were having some crazy conversation. What do
you gotta love it. You gotta love it. I mean, it's such a contrast from what we just had to have a guy who's like so candid and just kind of like speaks off the cuff versus like President fucking, stiff zombie who's like, go, the thing. Do I have any you got any Biden clips in here? No, I don't think I have any good Biden clips, except I do have Keith Olbermann talking about Joe Biden.
Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
So I just want to touch on a couple more quick things before we go here. This was a reminder again of how the Margaret Brennans of the world are operating in 2024. And I saw a tweet about this that was like, liberals just don't get it, do they? And this is Lin-Manuel Miranda appeared as Hamilton in the SNL Cold Open. Saturday Night Live kicked off a show with Lin-Manuel Miranda as Alexander Hamilton. Then Trump, played by an SNL cast member, interrupted him. So this is the brunch lib view of the election.
Alexander Hamilton.
What do I say? I say our lives matter not if we lose them in the cause of liberty. What matters is the nation we build. Yeah! Because in America, all men are created equal. America, not England. We do win the sequel. And we will have leaders, but know one thing. In America, we will never have a king.
Look at Lynn. Look how bad he wants to do it.
This guy does a really terrible Trump too. Like he doesn't even remind me of Trump. He reminds me of like a game show, another game show host.
wrote a whole rap and he doesn't get to do it. Oh, the audience would have eaten that right up. But we're not going to hear it. He's in sniffing distance of an EGOT and he's got to stand there till I'm done.
So it's like this stuff too.
Lin-Manuel Miranda Cosgrove. There you go. Well, Lynn, you've been a great sport. Frankly, a really good friend. I want to thank him for his generous, anonymous $1 million donation to my campaign. I know that was you, Lynn.
No, it was not.
Your word against mine.
Yeah, so that's brunch lib world for you. And they wonder why they lose elections. They still see the world through this lens where Trump is the worst person ever, and he's trying to be a king. He was elected by the people to do the things that you clearly don't like. So let's close out today's show with a conversation about a tweet that I made about Elon's Nazi salute. and I just want to show you, this is maybe a new recurring segment on the show that we'll call I Called It. Maybe it was like the Steve Colbert, I think, had something along those lines, but I gotta go into my timeline real quick and dig up this tweet. But I definitely called it. Hold on a second. Here, where is it? Just give me just a minute. Any Republican senator. Oh, by the way, I wonder if Obama actually slept with Jennifer Aniston. What do you think? Do you think it's real? I don't know. All right, so check this out. This is a tweet I made. I posted a couple right after Elon did his Nazi salute. And this is what I had to say. I said, Elon Musk did a Nazi salute knowing that a bunch of useless virtue signaling cunts would boviate endlessly about it for weeks and weeks. Boy, did it work. It's like nothing else in the world exists now. That was actually the second tweet I made about this. The first one, I got to go back a little bit further. Hold on a second. I have a couple good ones about this. Wow, I have like 3 tweets about this. Where's the one I gotta find? Okay, here it is. This is the one I was looking for. While brunch liberals and the clown press corps spend the next 2 weeks firmly clutching their pearls over Elon's Nazi salute, many other actual important things will be occurring. But you'll be watching Piers Morgan's 7-person panel on Elon's salute. Okay? It's not 7 people, but here is Piers Morgan's panel on Elon's Nazi salute. I called it. I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't really that hard.
Exactly like the way that they did in the Third Reich. That's not an accident. He's a smart guy.
All the evidence points to the fact not only is he not a Nazi, but there's no good incentive for him to even do this. You just don't care. You don't care because you want it to be some trolling.
Like, I love how Piers Morgan now has like the WWF style music and everything. SmackDown. It's Jake versus this guy in the fucking SmackDown over Elon's Nazi salute. Yeah, Sunday.
Thing when it clearly isn't.
I think you're an idiot. I think you love that coup on January 6th. I think you hate our democracy. I think you hate our Constitution. So what part of that is cozying up to
Look
the
at
right?
Piers about to burst into laughter. I think he realizes like what great TV Cenk is because he's like so hyper emotional and just freaks out and starts calling people names all the time. It's like really easy to get him to that point. So he's good. He's entertaining.
You have a female bishop. That's an impossibility. That is not Christian at all. That is satanic.
It's inversion, dude. It's satanic. You sound insane. You sound, to me, honestly, you sound like you belong in a mental asylum.
By the way, it's great to
Piers Morgan's like, I'm just gonna get like the intellectual bottom feeders of both extreme, Cenk and this other dipshit, and just like put them in a cage and let them fucking wrestle it out.
have the old check back, by the way. President Trump pledged to transform the United States, and his first days in his office have been nothing short of shock and awe. Trump unveiled a tidal wave of executive actions, as well as scrapping all of Joe Biden's with a stroke of a pen.
Let's get into the good stuff.
This guy on May 30th of 2020, the White House was under siege. It was attacked. Over 100 Secret Service agents injured. They were burning down stations. This guy said, "Oh, well, Trump had to go hide out in his bunker." Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and Donald Trump came out and was like, "Oh, AOC had to go hide. Oh, these politicians had to go hide." He doesn't care about political violence. The left doesn't care about political violence at all. They'll use it when it's expedient for them. They always do. Pointing to a couple of bad actors at this thing and saying all of them have to be thrown away. And, the key thrown away with them is insanity. And no,
they're talking about January 6th. Let's see if we can find some hot points.
The thing is, Snake, is that you're just trying to kiss the right wing's ass now to get back in with them because the left has categorically rejected you, and that's what's actually happening.
Whoa, that was a great moment there. That guy fucking nailed it right there. Let's see what Cenk has to say in response.
Is that what's happening?
All right, you amuse me. Yeah, this guy amuses me. So, like, you think calling me Snake is going to somehow win you the debate? Good luck with that childish.
I already won the debate.
Way of going. Oh, you did because you said it. Okay, that by the way, another great debating tactic. Just saying you won. And second of all, we have 27 million. How many times do I have to say this? 27 million subscribers, 30 billion lifetime views. You're a pimple.
Dude, Cenk's trying to tout his viewer base. Jimmy Dore and Do Dissonance get way more views than anything TYT is doing these days. And the views that TYT are getting are bot inflated as hell. I guarantee it. Just like Kyle and Crystal. No one watches that trash anymore except for fucking brunch libs and dipshits.
On my ass. I literally don't even know who you are. So you come in here talking about audience and you're a Snake. Okay, you're a
Cenk did the Hollywood diss. I don't even know who you are.
Audience,
whatever. Do I win now?
I didn't say anything about audience. What are you talking about? Are you a lunatic?
You did. You just said, "Oh yeah, the left wing's audience has got a problem with it." I know the left wing better than you does. Oh yeah,
you're trying to cozy up with right wingers.
Okay, so anyway,
TPUSA,
let's get to the good.
Trying to cozy in stuff with right wingers like Charlie Kirk.
Okay, again. If people defending that as autism are fucking like, come on. He did that intentionally. That is way too passionate for it not to be intentional. And here's my latest theory. If you saw what's going on with the AI stuff with Sam Altman and those guys, I think Elon was mad to some degree that he didn't get a piece of that after he kissed Trump's ass so hard. He's going to get his own piece of shit. He's going to get space shit. But Trump gave the AI thing to these guys, to David Sachs and the Sam Altman people. And so like my low key theory is Elon was pissed about that and he wanted to cause Trump some grief. So that's why he did a Nazi salute on stage, because everyone already thinks that. People have been so propagandized to think that Trump is like the second coming, like white nationalist, whatever the fuck you need to be scared and ignore the reality of what's going on. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
Now, Cenk, you said it was the most obvious Nazi salute you'd ever seen, which I think Hitler might be a bit surprised about. But you didn't really say that, did you?
I wonder if these guys are going to have differing viewpoints on this. Obviously, I think it was. I mean, this is my opinion. I think it was pretty obvious that he did it intentionally. Like he did. There's no way you do that. Like the way that he did it, he like slaps his chest and does the full like arc and everything to the stiff arm at that angle. That is totally intentional. There's just no way around. Hold on. Let's watch it one more time. Slow motion replay.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
1,000% intentional. 1,000% intentional.
Now, Cenk, you said it was
the most
obvious
covers for it by turning
salute
around to
you've
the
ever
wall
seen.
behind him and like
Which
saluting
I think
the wall.
Hitler might be a bit surprised about, but You
didn't really say that, did you? Saying, oh,
yeah, but Cenk, just to be clear, you don't actually think he's a Nazi, do you? So how can you make a Nazi salute if you're not actually a Nazi, and in fact absolutely hate everything they stand for? That's not a Nazi salute.
So also, like, when you do a Nazi salute, don't you have to be saluting something? Like,
it's a awkward thing that he did to say "my heart to you," that then gets deliberately misinterpreted as a Nazi salute by people who keep wanting.
Deliberately misinterpreted is a good way to frame that, because that's the effect Elon Musk was going for. That's what he wanted to happen. He wanted people to. Again, I don't think he's an actual Nazi by any stretch. Maybe he has some, tendencies. He's not even a fucking elected member of the administration. He's just a guy there with money. He's not like he wields influence as much as like Miriam Adelson does. You know what I mean? Like, he's not part of the administration. So that's the other thing I think is interesting to me, where I think it's like kind of him trying to give Trump a hard time or create problems for the Trump people because he's mad about something, because he's not even part of the fucking functional administration. He's just a guy who's there.
To call everyone on the right a Nazi.
No. So Elon Musk is trolling. So this is a classic right-wing maneuver. It's to get attention. And he knows that if he does a Nazi salute, but he says, "Oh, buddy, I touched my heart. And I can't believe they're calling me a Nazi. I'm the victim. The left wing is coming after me just because I did the most obvious Nazi salute of all time."
He's not saying that he's a victim. I think more than anything, he's just laughing at how well it worked, and all the dumb people that are fucking clutching their pearls. The same people, again, and then I'm going to stop talking about this, but the people that are the most upset about this symbolic gesture are the same people who were cool with Biden endlessly arming a fucking genocide. So shut the fuck up. Like, get your priorities straight. Okay, yes, it was a legitimate Nazi salute. Yes, it was. Now what? What's he going to do? Should we be ready for Elon to invade Poland? Is he going to get an army of Tesla robots and invade Poland now? Like, where does this logically lead to? Outside of a dumb fucking symbolic gesture that the dude made at a rally just to piss you off.
Now, the left is angry at me because I'm not calling him a Nazi. I think he's trolling. I think he's doing it for attention.
So Cenk, surprisingly, I'm glad I watched this, because surprisingly, Cenk shares my sentiment on this. I'm actually surprised that his view is not completely half-witted and stupid. He's actually correct.
Plausible deniability. It's the oldest trick in the book coming from the right wing. In fact, when you get upset at the right wing, they usually go, he's just trolling, right? So that's what happened there. That wasn't subtle. And again, I have credibility here, because when they accused so many people of doing this, I said no. When Laura Ingraham was at the RNC and she raised her arm, and they're like, that's a Nazi salute. I'm like, that's not a Nazi salute. She just raised her arm. Everybody raises their arm. Yeah. He did that so crisp, so sharp, exactly like the way that they did in the third round.
It was too intentional. It's just too intentional.
It's not an accident. He's a smart guy. He's doing it to get us to do this segment, and for the inauguration to all be about Elon Musk. He's swallowing up all the attention.
I think that is the biggest load of cobblers I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my God, shut the fuck up. Piers Morgan is a moron. Cenk's actually right. So I rarely give Cenk credit, but holy shit, he actually nailed that one. What a boss. Like, you score one for Cenk. Again, I'm not a fan of Cenk by any stretch. I think he's a fucking fake piece of shit, but at least he got that one right. Anyway, I'm going to close out today by giving you some treats. It's been a while since I've played this clip. This is like one of my favorite kind of beats that I made recently. And it's basically Max Blumenthal doing a speech at the UN. But I kind of put it over a beat that I made out of the Ukraine, I put it over a beat that I made using the Gray Zone theme song. So anyway, I think it's as salient as ever, the stuff that Max is saying here. Thank you for tuning in. Like and subscribe, all that good shit. And we'll be back, if not tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow or Wednesday for another episode of the Almost Daily Show. I got mad love for you. Enjoy.
Describing to you, which sees Washington prioritize unrestrained funding for a proxy war with a nuclear power in a foreign land while our domestic infrastructure falls apart before our eyes, exposes a disturbing dynamic at the heart of the Ukraine conflict. An international Ponzi scheme that enables Western elites to seize hard-earned wealth from the hands of average U.S. citizens and funnel it into the coffers of a foreign government. Indeed, military cemeteries in Ukraine are expanding almost as rapidly as the Northern Virginia McMansions and beachfront estates of executives from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and assorted Beltway contractors benefiting from the second highest level of military spending since World War II. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. The Biden administration not only knows that it cannot track the weapons it's shipping to Ukraine, it knows that it is escalating a proxy war against the world's largest nuclear power and daring it to respond in kind. The soldier complained this month to Vice News, "We don't know what Zelensky's plans are, but, quote, it looks like the extermination of its own population, like of the combat-ready and working-age population. That's it." Indeed, military cemeteries in Ukraine are expanding almost as rapidly as the Northern Virginia McMansions and beachfront estates of executives from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and assorted Beltway contractors benefiting from the second highest level of military spending since World War II. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. Senator Lindsey Graham has offered a much more grim and more on-the-mark rationale for supplying Ukraine with billions in weapons. As the senator boasted during a recent visit with Zelensky in Kiev, the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. And Graham has also said that Americans are ready to fight this war down to the last Ukrainian. So while military-age Ukrainian men are ripped off the streets by military police and sent to the front lines, the financially and politically connected architects of this proxy war are planning to walk through the revolving door to reap unimaginable profit. Military cemeteries in Ukraine are expanding almost as rapidly as the Northern Virginia McMansions and beachfront estates of executives from Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and assorted Beltway contractors benefiting from the second highest level of military spending since World War II. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. To reap unimaginable profits once their time in the Biden administration is over. For them, a negotiated settlement to this territorial dispute means an end to the cash cow of close to $150 billion in U.S. aid to Ukraine. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war. These are the real winners of the Ukraine proxy war.
You swear to tell the truth, Marjorie? Oh yeah, AOC, I'm going in. Fund the police, even though they won't come around. If your neighborhood's predominantly brown, and if you call them, they'll most likely show up and uncategorically shoot at minorities. Despite that shit, we gotta fund. Give corrupt mother lovers more badges and guns. Our police state is too big to fail, so let's fund the prison complex till we all live in jails. Tweeting at me cause I'm in Congress, dropping cash on the military complex, searching my timeline for racism. Cops know that I got mad funding to give them. AOC, and you wanna date me, cause I'm fresh, yo, put you in the friend zone. Criticize me, I will scream violence, then send the cops to your house just to silence even your family's right to speak. Then I'll give $1 billion to the Capitol Police. I'm in the house, yo, we got the purse strings to fund the police state and do all the worst things. But I'll never do anything out there like vote against war or for universal health care. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, girl. Fund the police. Fund the police. Yeah, fund the police. Fund the police.